Ladies and gentlemen, we're live for Beat the Banks. I'm your host, Chris, the DeFi Professor. A little late today. I apologize. I'm having some technical issues. Seems to be the story of the week for me today. I wanted to take a little bit of time to create some slides to talk about what I was talking about. It was working great, and then suddenly it just stopped being helpful. Maybe because I'm using this. I want to use the same style that I had last time, which was the really cool style from I used Nano Banana to generate all of it. So, well, it is what it is. I may have to just recreate these because I was trying to do them on a whim, but there was a point where like Nano Banana was like undefeated, and then suddenly they're kind of running into the issue where they can't spell, and I don't love that because it makes me look like I can't spell, and I am not in that situation. Anyway, welcome to the show. This is a show we've been doing since January 2022. The whole point of the show is to educate you, our dear users, on how to take advantage of all the things that are out there to become your own bank. Self-custody is the name of the game. Why is that important? It's important because, and I just realized my mic is probably pretty hot. It is important because we are in a situation where the system is rigged against you. You want to make sure that you're in a position where you can actually take control of your wealth creation, how you hold your money, and become your own bank because you have the access and the subsystem to do it now. A lot of people do not realize this. So if you happen to know anybody who is curious about crypto or digital assets, as we're going to call it, moving forward, please send them our way. Happy to talk to them about it. Today's show today is about the title, I believe, is called RWA, Gold, and a couple other things walk into a bar. So basically the idea is we're going to talk about what's on the landscape right now. We are about 2.5 weeks away from ETH Denver. Looking forward to seeing many of you there. If you happen to be there, please let me know. Happy to do some in-person consultations, some coaching. If you're a protocol and you're looking for someone to do some content creation, I'm actually working on a little bit of a scavenger hunt to give me something fun to do while I'm in Denver. Not that meeting all of you isn't fun, but just something which for some content. I'm going to do a little bit of a scavenger hunt, looking for specific groups or people to talk to or topics to cover. If you want to be a part of that, if you want to sponsor that, please let me know. Happy to include you in those plans. Okay, so let me go ahead and get to these slides about what we're going to talk about today. So today, and let me just do one thing to share that I am on live. Shout out to all my unicorns with the Creator Phi cohort. Okay. And I apologize. These slides have misspellings on them. But we're really just here to talk about the landscape. So first of all, biggest part of the landscape, RWAs, what we call real world assets. They are exploding. They've been exploding for quite some time, but really with everything coming on chain, tokenization, New York Stock Exchange is providing their own tokenized exchange. With native tokenized assets as well as TradFi securities and whatnot coming on chain for trading and liquidity strategies through their partnership with Chainlink. This is going to be a very interesting time in fintech to see exactly what becomes of this. So currently RWA, in terms of real world assets, and these can be anything. The majority of RWAs right now are based off of U.S. Treasury bills. That's the backing. U.S. debt is the backing for a lot of these RWA stablecoins. I believe it's the 10-year bond, specifically. Groups like Ondo, Securitize, working with BlackRock and a bunch of other large institutions to bring a lot of this on-chain. This allows you to own some of that and perform multiple financial strategies, investment strategies based off of the backing of those assets. Now, real world assets doesn't have to be T-bills. It could be real estate. It could be other commodities like precious metals, like gold, silver. Copper apparently is in the running for something to be talked about. Gold-backed stablecoins is kind of a hot topic right now. And that's one of the really cool things about that. And there's other things you can put, like collectibles, right? I'm seeing markets coming on chain for things like baseball cards, Pokemon, watches, whiskeys, luxury items, also part of RWAs. It's really more about the backing of them and the quality of that backing, which will provide the backing for the coin from a liquidity standpoint. They're available on multiple. These are not even the right logos. My goodness, Nano Banana. Sorry about that, Solana. And Securitize and Ondo. Ethereum's good though. These are available on multiple ecosystems. I will say that right now, even though we're roughly between 20 and 30 billion in total value locked of this on chain, the Clarity Act is going to be a huge part of where this goes. Now, it passed out of the Ag Committee yesterday by one vote on a party line vote. If it comes to, once it comes to the floor, if it all comes together, it will be signed in by President Trump. I will say that Coinbase was kind of causing a little bit of a maelstrom with regards to what they wanted to do. Tether actually has sided with the other side. And so Coinbase believes that no bill is better than a really bad bill, which really is a bad bill for them and their shareholders more than anything based on how they want to structure things. Whereas Tether is looking for the health of along with Ripple and many others, looking for the health of having a market structure act at all. Because not having one can be, frankly, a problem. At least for confidence. But once this happens, a lot more money should be flowing into decentralized finance, this whole financial subsystem that is non-sovereign, no country, well, fully sovereign, no country owns the technology here. It was all built with $0 of taxpayer money. And, this is part of the landscape for 2026 and beyond. Real world assets coming on chain. There's going to be a huge market for this moving forward, I think. And having it in a digital standpoint where it's open 24/7, 365 with instant settlement in the most cases will be huge. Now, the EU already has a market structure act called MICA, M-I-C-A, that they've had for nearly 2 years now. So really the US is playing catch up to this. So once this is there, and granted, there's not a whole lot of innovation on the EU side either, mainly because the UK has really they're not part of the EU, of course, but they've taken a bit of a staunch kind of stance to that. But we'll see if the EU starts to pick up more things. There's multiple banks in the EU that have created their own stablecoins, for example, and we'll see exactly how, as the US is seemingly going to be leading this move, where things go from here. Precious metals get DeFi superpowers. So, gold, silver, really any precious metal, but the 5 that I'm seeing specifically that have markets right now, shout out to the team at Remora Markets, is gold, silver, palladium, platinum, and copper. A lot of people are calling for copper to be the trade of this cycle. I've seen that a couple times in the last 48 hours. I was like, didn't know that was a call you were willing to make there, but could be very interesting, mainly because of the composability factor of DeFi. When you have a tokenized asset in decentralized finance, you can actually do multiple things with it. You can put it into liquidity strategies. You could use it as collateral at a lending market and have borrow against it and farm the borrowed capital to earn additional yield using the collateral is a really great yield-bearing supply asset. Thank you. That's what we're looking to do. And you can get great exposure off of that. Imagine if you could just, get the exposure of some gold or some silver, bring it to a lending AMM, borrow stablecoins against it, which you can earn between 6 to 25% on, and earn that additional passive income just for holding the asset. One distinction I want to make here, that you're not holding the actual assets spot in this case. You are playing on exposure. And I've seen, because I actually talk about this quite a bit on this show, right? People are trying to rush over to these ETFs for Bitcoin and Ethereum, or, going into some of these companies who are DATCOs, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, a digital asset treasury company. And I say, just go buy the asset. People here are also saying, just go buy the asset. Well, the difference is that may not be possible for you, right? Same thing with regards to, with the stock purchases. You may want to use stock because let's just say that all of the capital that's getting this is from some sort of, let's say it's with a trust or some type of self-directed IRA, something that does not allow you to have full control or at least the parameters to go and actually buy the asset itself. Getting exposure in some way probably makes a lot of sense. So with gold and silver and other metals now being tokenized on chain, you can use DeFi's composability to do multiple things with it. And I think it's really fascinating to see exactly how it's going to work, whether it's through perp leverage, even through, like I already mentioned, the lending AMM piece, using liquidity provision through either concentrated liquidity or setting up LPs on DEXs directly to profit off the behavior of other investors when one person swaps one asset for the other. These are all things that you can do. And again, the spelling, I apologize. Solana, Plasma, Hyper EVM, really good places right now for LP exposure, specifically to gold. And there are other projects I added. I said Remora. Theo is one too. Theo has a big T-bill called TH-bill product that a lot of groups in DeFi are actually using in terms of vaults and stuff like that. So they're going to join existing offerings from both Tether, which is XAUT, and Paxos with their Paxos Gold, PAXG. They've been around for many years, and these are products you can get into along with those and have multiple strategies that are available. The one thing I want to say is that stablecoins are still the killer app of crypto. We've been saying this for years. It's still going to hold true. Why? Because stablecoins will unlock access for the everyday person to come through and actually be in this space, right? Most people, they may not want to go and get the exposure or own digital assets tied to gold or precious metals, or even things like apartment complexes, for example. We've talked about this on a couple other streams where there are some projects that are tied to property management, where if you hold a specific, well, in this case an NFT, to have fractional ownership into a specific apartment unit, you get a piece of the actual rents that are being paid for by the tenants, which I think is a really cool idea, and I'm shocked that nobody else is doing this just yet, to be honest. So we need more of that. Stablecoins are going to be around in multiple forms, right? So the Genius Act offers retail institutions the ability to issue a stablecoin. There are multiple groups that are actually not banks going through groups like this. But now, the first point here, most of the biggest issuers of these are actually banks now. Circle, Ripple. Why can I not spell this? Why? Paxos, Coinbase. PayPal is still in the middle of getting theirs approved. Even Crypto.com, I think Truth Social is looking to get one as well. No, World Liberty Financial, the president's DeFi protocol. All looking to get banking licenses so that they can actually issue their stablecoins. Natively to everyday people, thanks to the Genius Act. RWA stables are going to continue to rise. T-bills, my goodness. PayPal is offering, YouTube is offering YouTubers the ability to receive their AdSense revenue in PayPal USD, which is their version of their stablecoin, fully backed. I think they've partnered with Paxos specifically for this. In their app, you can actually stake it up to 4.5%, depending on how much you have in there. There's, of course, a cooldown if you want to remove your money, but the ability to actually earn passively while you hold money in there is great. And then Coinbase's X402 and AI agents are going to make in IRL, in real life payments, fairly seamless. Along with Wallet Connect, they've partnered with a couple of different groups for point of sale infrastructure. Also, on not on this slide, OnePay, which is partnered with Walmart, you can actually pay using 150 different types of crypto. So the ability for you to come in with money that is in the form of a digital asset is important here. And the reason why it's important for many people is because you want to be in a situation where your money is not being drained, or at least losing value, being devalued due to fiat currency inflation. And that's the key, right? When you are in this realm, you have the ability to have currency that is A, anti-fragile, and B, censorship resistant. And of course, the inflation piece, especially if you're in a world where you have a local currency that is being devalued quickly in a hyperinflationary state. You want to be able to be in a situation where your money can actually stretch further. That's why digital assets in Latin America, in Southeast Asia, in the EU are popular, because it's preventing people from losing from their savings, especially if they're let's call them mattress money holders, right? You have people who actually just hold paper bills inside of a jar buried in the backyard. The longer it sits there, it's actually losing value due to inflation worldwide. So let's talk about some P's to watch. Why do I have the wrong slide here again? It's one of those days. Anyway, prediction markets, privacy, and you don't even see this right now. Prediction markets, privacy, and pro-Bitcoin moves. Not show moves. Prediction markets. Oh, perp dexes should be in here as well. Thanks, Banana. I'm just going to make my own slides next time. Ay, ay, ay. Let's start with the points. Prediction markets are being woven into mainstream events. Kalshi is in with multiple news sites. Polymarket is in with DAZN, as well as I believe the NHL. They'll be having live prediction markets there. They were featured on the Golden Globes. They picked 26 out of the 28 winners correctly, which doesn't make them factual. It just means that people were using it to try and earn a little bit on their predictions. Now, if you have the ability to think about if this is possibly gambling, I would not blame you if you thought it was gambling, because you can lose money by picking the wrong option here. But having this here for data is important to companies, and we're going to see more of this moving forward, especially now we're in an election year. Assuming we have elections, we're going to see prediction markets play a bigger part in the ethos of what's going on there. Perp dexes, which are decentralized exchanges that have perpetuals, which are digital assets that are pegged to the value of something else, generally with a different, the perp will not be a spot asset, it'll be a derivative asset that will give you exposure to that. So for example, for things like gold, for things like Bitcoin, ETH, and even other assets. So if you're in Hyper EVM on Hyperliquid, Solana is not a native ecosystem to you there, but you can get a perp that is Sol. It'll be denominated normally in USD at this point, and you can own that asset and then be able to have exposure to it. For example, you can do leveraged longs or shorts, and there are a variety of things you can do there. Centralized exchanges understand that it's probably something that's going to go by the wayside. In fact, perps were created on BitMEX from Arthur Hayes and his group. The origins of the perp are there, but it's more of a DeFi native concept at this point. But there will be flavors on a centralized exchange where you'll be able to own an asset. It won't be spot; it'll be a perpetual, derivative asset, and you can do things with it from there. They will continue to eat at the volumes of CEXs. In fact, Hyperliquid is already closing in on almost 3 billion in TVL, or total value locked, for people using that on a daily basis. It's just a matter of time Even for DYDX and GMX, they're not going to be around much anymore because people have moved on to larger platforms, whether it be DYDX or Aster or some of the others that are huge that are out there. Avantis, Lighter, Ostium, Variational, that are all out there. OX markets that are going to be around as a perp dex, available to multiple types of people. It's just a matter of time, right? Because once they get more of this mobile friendly in the hands of people, frankly, you're not even going to know where it's going to come from. But decentralized will be the way moving forward. So with that said, privacy is going to play a big part of the meta moving forward. Let's talk a little bit about privacy and what's been happening. Now, privacy has come into decentralized finance in several stages over the last couple of months. Well, years. I should say years, because at Denver 2023, they were talking a lot about zero knowledge proofs. And that's kind of become the big norm now about which platforms are going to have zero knowledge proofs as part of their settlement, because it's much faster than optimistic rollups, much like Arbitrum and Base and Optimism are all a part of. The ability to shield blockchain transactions is going to be a really big part of this. Whether it's through Zcash and their shielded transactions, even wallets, I think like Solflare and Solana will have shielded transactions soon. Friends of our show, Hinkle Wallet, they'll have private shielded transactions on existing EVM chains. Sometimes we talk about specific blockchains being privacy friendly. We're going to see more of these specific technologies that will actually just have privacy there for you, there in the open. You'll be able to shield your transactions and make it so it's easier for you and only you to know what your transactions are. Zcash and Monero will be probably big players in some instance. Zcash needs more of a blockchain. I know StarkChain's considering working on a roll-up. There's still talks about that, so that there will be more DeFi related strategies in that realm. Monero, there will always be work with Monero on that. There's multiple blockchains in the Cosmos ecosystem that center around that. And then one thing we talked about at the beginning are DATCOs. These are digital asset treasury companies. This is part of the pro-Bitcoin digital asset moves, where more companies, governments are creating SBRs, or strategic Bitcoin reserves. Well, we know El Salvador at one point recognized it as legal tender. They kind of still do. We have multiple companies or multiple countries now giving 0% capital gains on, crypto assets, digital assets like Bitcoin, crypto, things like that. And we have multiple companies whose main treasury is being used to purchase a singular asset. Things like Bitmine Immersion, they're specifically an ETH DATCO because they want to own 5% of the global ETH supply. One second. Yeah, so these are all the things to watch in 2026. These are all going to layer in, with stable coins, with precious metals. These are all going to be the platforms and the tools that you're going to have moving forward. It's up to you how you want to utilize it, because it's frankly fairly easy to get access to it. You take a second to grab some water. I'm going to take a second to check any chats. Shout out to everybody who's watching on retake, on the arena, on Abstract Chain, and also on Den.show. Okay. So the last thing I wanted to talk about today, and again, a lot of this is aimed towards those of you who are very skeptical about digital assets, about decentralized finance, thinking that with a lot of the actions that have been going on, the market hasn't looked all that great. I don't blame you if you think there's some craziness out here, but for many of us, this is still a fantastic place to get the right strategies in. And to find that generational transfer of wealth along with the passive income strategies that DeFi provides. So there's going to be a new space race here, and granted, I have no idea what all these. Nano Banana was so good until it just wasn't. But this is a new space race, right? President Trump of the United States has been vigilant about making the U.S. the leader in crypto. Not only crypto, but in AI. He has David Sachs, his czar over crypto and AI, specifically to meet this goal. The president even has a mining company they bought called American Bitcoin. Well, it's called American Bitcoin, where they're trying to mine as much Bitcoin as possible. Is that going into the American U.S. Strategic Bitcoin Reserve? Probably not. Think about it how you will. But there is a space race, right? China is also in this race to make sure that they happen to have the best technology with regards to AI. They've been able to surpass ChatGPT and Claude using cheaper hardware, better models, things like that. And you can't really tell from here, but China's in this race. The EU is in this race because they already have a Market Structure Act that has most of all this laid out. And the other two here that you can't see because, well, anyway, one's Russia, and the other is the United Arab Emirates. Dubai has kind of emerged as this economic place to be. If you're a creator in this space, if you're a KOL, an influencer, Dubai is on the list for a lot of people looking for a place to live in order to, have access to great financial teams, great fintech teams, great DeFi teams. There's just something special about what they've built in the UAE, whether you're in Abu Dhabi or Dubai, to be both an entrepreneur as well as just being in a jurisdiction that doesn't tax you to death. Not naming any specific countries. But we'll see. I do think that the U.S. will actually make a play for this to make it so if you have a certain, well, I know that they've already said they're not going to tax Bitcoin transactions under a certain amount, but also for companies who are U.S. based, which is why there's been such a rush for companies to come back to the United States, that if they're a U.S. crypto company, they won't have to pay any capital gains on their crypto. Or they may go for the Puerto Rico route and say 4%, something like that. Who knows? It's coming, though. So yeah, what a crazy, we're in a full year ever since President Trump has taken office, and for some of us it feels like it's been way longer than 1 year. But these are just things to consider on the landscape when we're looking at, what's going on with digital assets. I know people are still going to say that blockchain and crypto and digital assets is funny money. It's not real. Neither is the money you're having in your hands, guys. It's only real if someone will recognize it as legal tender. And they're not producing as much cash as they were. Yeah, they're printing money technically, but they're not trying to maintain that supply, right? They stopped producing the penny at the mint. At some point, I think the U.S. Mint shuts down because it may not be worth putting more hard assets into circulating supply. I think it's written on. I think it's definitely written on the wall. Digital assets are going to be the key moving forward. Now I know there's all the dystopian talk about programmable assets and money expiring because they did this in China. That doesn't have to be the case here. A market structure bill like the Clarity Act will take care of a lot of things, making sure that the correct consumer protections are in place with the CFTC as well as the SEC moving forward. SEC Chair Paul Atkins even just talked about he thinks it's right now, the timing is now correct to take retirement funds and 401ks into the crypto arena. So we could see some interesting strategies there, specifically with the idea that we get RWAs specifically for retirement funds. I mean, imagine if we had stablecoins that were based off of tranches of 401ks. Fidelity already talked about they're coming out with their own stablecoin, FIDD. Imagine a world where your 401k, well, I mean, let me kind of dial it back. There are other places in the world where they're already tokenizing your retirement. And I'm looking directly at you, Australia, with your super fund. They do have funds that are specific, that are tokenized, that are S fund friendly, right? So there are models out there that can work. And I'm a bit jealous of those of you who are in Australia stacking your retirement, because you're earning 9 to 12% on that. And you've been earning 9 to 12% on that for years. Now that's going to be tokenized and available. It could be one of those things where someone can tokenize and create a lending market off of it. Or, perp dexes. There could be all kinds of things that power these things based off of, economic mechanics that are far above my smooth brain at the moment. But there are ideas that are out there that people will probably take advantage of and turn these into frankly viable commodities moving forward. I mean, it's not going to be that long before we're, let's just say for BitTensor, the huge AI super commodity ecosystem. There could be a team who comes in on a subnet because I know they're modeling things like infectious diseases, weather patterns, even things like video game assets, music, and even, shout out to the team at Lead Poet doing hireability, employee avatars, stuff like that, to help bring sales leads, from an AI modeled perspective to the market. We're going to see something like that probably with retirement funds as well. Maybe through behaviors on how people, work with fixed income, or finding ways to help people who are retired benefit off the fact that they're on fixed income. If they can get even further passive income using their fixed income, would they do that? Yeah, probably. Probably. By leasing some of their fixed income out to the system and being paid a yield in return for that, I think there are a lot of people who, probably would take advantage of that. But that's a larger philosophical discussion, to be quite honest. But we'll see exactly what happens with stablecoins, because to me, that's going to be besides the Clarity Act, that's going to be the linchpin. Being in a situation where we have stablecoins that can be easily used in a wallet that you control, that can take care of everything for you, right? One thing that happens in our group a lot is that people will farm stablecoins at various places to earn in excess of 6, 10, even 20% on stablecoin farms, and they use that to pay their taxes. Could you imagine if you actually were paid, like let's say, for example, let's use the Stake and Shake example. So Stake and Shake has a new mechanism called the Bitcoin bonus, where 21 cents worth of Bitcoin every hour for full-time employees and hourly employees are paid 21 cents an hour in Bitcoin that goes into a fund being custodied by Fold Finance. That will be held there, I'm assuming tax-free, right? For 2 years. And then you can access it and probably pay the taxes that are required on it, depending on, according to U.S. laws, because this is a U.S. thing, because Steak and Shake's a U.S. company. Imagine if everyone kind of did something like that, right? There are companies I know of, here locally, where you get paid, if you're a full-time employee, you can get paid and have same-day access to your pay. What's cool about blockchain technology, because smart contracts, smart code's law down here, smart contracts govern how money is distributed. Imagine working in a job where a smart contract already pays you. It streams it to you block by block. And for most protocols on most blockchains, that's sub-second. So literally instantly, you're being paid as you sit there. And then being able to, take that money, have it staked in a system that earns specific yield, auto compounding daily, and then using other products to pay for your bills. For example, Swipe.fund from Brahma allows you to, if you have your money sitting in Aave, earning, let's say, 4% USDC staked, it'll just automatically go out, take some of that proceeds, and pay for your Netflix subscription. That's something that they use there. But imagine if you could do that with everything. Shout out to Spritz Finance. Started out on Polygon. Been around forever. The ability to just have money sitting in an account, compounding daily, earning passive yield through multiple strategies, through one smart contract. And then you can schedule that it goes and pays your mortgage, your utilities, your car payment, insurance. All of this comes out. And also, maybe some goes out into a fund that earns better yield through DeFi strategies to help pay your taxes off, either if you pay quarterly or even if you pay once a year. These are things that are possible in DeFi. And these are the things that I want to show you and tell you about that are important for you, especially in a world where you are the bank, right? You are constantly earning on your money here in this space. Most people that have a checking account doesn't earn anything. Mine doesn't. I take that back. Shout out to Discover. I use them as an online bank. I think I earn quite a bit. It's just cashback rewards, right, for spending. But imagine if you got cashback rewards just for having money there. They want your business, so they're going to give you so and so to borrow your assets and then put them out, and you know exactly where it's going. I mean, that's the beauty about DeFi. You don't get that right now in the current fractional banking reserve system. You just don't. And that's why being your own bank is important. I'm going to do a workshop sometime soon called Getting Your House in Order. It's going to be talking about how to get prepared to come into DeFi, but also how to stay safe. That's the big thing. Staying safe in DeFi is a huge thing. In fact, if you watched last week's episode, I gave 10 steps on how to stay safe here in DeFi. Let me pull that up. With operational security. You can watch that from last week on my socials, on the Beacon socials as well. It is from this post on Zora. You can coin it yourself if you'd like. Thanks, of course, to everybody who's purchased some of it just to have as a reminder. And you're supporting me as a creator for creating stuff like this. And this is stuff that I talk about pretty regularly on this podcast. So make sure you follow and know when I go on chain or when I go online to present information. And really it's about just kind of going into this more of a deep dive rather than just these 10 things. There's at least 10 things you can do to make sure that you are safe. And what the output of that is having a security routine, which is number 7 here. That's probably the most important part that you can do as a user in this space to be successful, is to have a routine. Routines are great because routines, they make it mindless. They make it, even though it's repetitive, at some point you can automate it, but a routine helps you. You have the muscle memory. You're not going to fat finger. You know exactly what to do. You know exactly what the process is every time that you do it. One thing that I will say is that there's a lot of exploits specifically happening for people who are not revoking their approvals. Please, at this point, after you create a position, revoke the approval right away. There's the Aperture exploit, the SwapNet exploit on ETH mainnet. Both were done to lots of wallets that kept dangling approvals live. Now, if you use Rabby like we recommend, you can do it directly in the wallet. If you don't, you can just use revoke.cash. Shout out to the revoke.cash team. And then you just connect and then revoke the approvals. What's great about Rabby is you can do it in bulk and you can do it cross-chain all at the same time. Revoke, I think you have to do them one by one. regardless, it's important to do, and I want to make sure that you stay safe in this place. So I'll let you know exactly when the workshop is. It's probably going to be, frankly, it'll probably be on a weekend. I mean, I could do it during this, but an hour, I don't know if it's necessarily long enough. I'd rather go longer. Maybe I'll do it next Friday or the Friday after. There's some people I do want to talk about uh, to get their input, mainly because there are a lot of people who have seen some of my anti just my anti-exploit type of stuff. I just in fact I just had one of my DMs not that long ago. Someone wanted me to be on their podcast. I could tell directly from the link that they were feeding me that this was not going to be legitimate. And you have to be very careful out there if you're looking to be, a resource in this space. There's so many bad actors just looking to take advantage of your good nature, which just makes me sick. Um, but a lot of this just goes back to the 2 points that I have is that bad actors, they prey on people who are A, uneducated, and B, ill prepared. And if you follow my content, you will be neither. So let's work together to get your house in order, make sure that you have everything that you need, and I'll put together a basic routine that I think would work out for the majority of people. Because if you're going to sit down anyway, once a month, once a week, twice a week, however often you want to do it, to take the time to make sure everything is good. That's good. I mean, obviously, people do things like spring cleaning and stuff like that. You want to be in a situation where that doesn't become an issue, right? So yeah, this is available on Zora. If you want to follow along, you can check out zora.co at the DeFi Professor, and support me as a content creator. We really appreciate that. I was looking at DeFi Llama specifically for specific. This is a weird number. Maybe it's not. This is the number I care about. Stablecoins, 306 billion. The goal, and this is something that Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said, he believes stablecoins will be a $2 to $3 trillion market cap industry, which it will be, especially once the Clarity Act passes. More institutions start coming in, experimenting on what works. There will be roughly trillions of dollars in this space in stablecoins, period. The purpose of our content is to make sure that you are not coming in late to this. You want to be here now. Position yourself early. That way you can figure out the best ways to figure out how to not only just get into digital assets to grow your stack, but to be your own bank and make sure that when you self-custody your assets, you can find the true financial freedom. There's a lot of people in this, one of my co-hosts, my panelists for our Wednesday podcast, he's been bankless for the last 5 years. You can be bankless in this world and just use either on-chain banks, online banks to just move money back and forth and pay for your bills and not feed into this fractional reserve system. You'll always have access to your money. And I think that's something that's very attractive for a lot of people who are in this space. The one thing I will say, that's part of what we talked about here, cold storage first. Do not leave your money on a centralized exchange unless you have a specific reason to do so. Pardon me. 1 second. I see a lot of people who store a lot of funds on CEXs, whether it's Binance, Kraken, Crypto.com, Coinbase. I would recommend you don't do that. I would recommend if you are there for a specific reason, like you trade, you stake, that's one thing. But you're not going to hold idle capital on exchange. Use cold storage. That way you can self-custody your assets. In the event something happens, you can't access your money because it's stuck on Coinbase or something like what happened on October 10th and everything comes to a screeching halt. Yeah, you won't have access to your money at all. You've just essentially been deplatformed. And you don't want to be in that realm. You want to make sure you're using cold storage for that. Anyway, I don't want to belabor the point. Just kind of wanted to go through the slides today, as misspelled and ugly as they were. I apologize for that. Kind of did it in a whim when I was trying to figure out what are the best things to talk about today, and I thought Nano Banana would be my friend like it was back in November. It was not. It is what it is, so I apologize for the accuracy and the quality of those slides, but we will come back with better slides next time. And that's it. This is our Beat the Banks podcast. That's from my company, Beacon DeFi. We have been helping many people get into this space over the last, well, officially as a company, almost 3 years. But myself and the team have been in this space for much longer, helping tens of thousands get into this space over the last 5 to 6 years. If you'd like to learn more, feel free to check out our group here, school.com/beacon. Let me pull that up. Absolutely free. Check out our Start Here post. If you want to learn a little bit more about how to get in there, we have lots of free content. But if you like one-on-one mentorship, if you'd like to join an exclusive community of like-minded individuals, we have offerings for that as well. Of course, we want to say hello to our Beacon Mastermind members and our founding members for being the cornerstone for what we do here. Thank you guys so much. And also to all of our Beacon Spotlight subscribers and challengers. Thank you for also being a part of our journey here. Again, we do this show every Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern. Been doing this show since January 2022. And our goal is to help you understand the landscape of being in this space and becoming your own bank, so you can continue to beat the banks at their own game and keep all those yields for yourself. It's important. Spread the word, guys. We're trying to make sure everyone becomes financially literate in 2026 to learn more about the options that are here, because it's not a scam. It's true. We've been here for years. Everybody deserves access to it. Again, I'm Chris, the DeFi professor. We'll see you next time. Have a great weekend. Take care, as we say here. Beacons up. Banks down. Take care, everybody. Keep beating those banks. We'll see you next week.